everyone. So good to have you guys here again. Welcome to week 5. I really hope you all had a good weekend and you are enjoying this so far. Hello, Chris. Chris said hello to everyone in the chat. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So today we're talking about sales contacting, right? How exactly do I get my service, my product into the hands of people? All right. And so before we get started, I'm going to just kind of mention one of the most important things that we do here is to get people ready for capital. But a lot of times the 12 weeks we know is not enough. So this particular teaching is set up so that you know that there are things that you need to do beyond the deliverables, right? Because getting in front of an investor is more than just having your plan ready, but really they're looking for traction, right? How far have you gotten? How validated is the product or the service so that they can invest in you as a person as well? So the more validation you have, the closer you get to sales. And so with that being said, for this one, we like to talk about how important your customers are. And so there are two things that I'm going to talk about, and you can put questions in the chat when needed. And Jim is also going to get feedbacks as well, like he always does. But when it comes to customers, it's very important to know who your customers are, of course. We always say that, and what they need, and what their behaviors are, and what they do. The more you know about your customers, the more authority it gives you as a founder. Because before you know it, if you are, for example, a software, um, if you are in the software side of things, before you know it, you have to bring really intelligent people on board, right? More intelligent and smarter than you are. But so you don't want to lose the business, you don't want to lose the authority that you have. And so the more you know about who your customers are and what validation and what problem that you're solving for them, I believe that the more authority you will continue to have in sharing your vision, even when there are much smarter people on the table. And so today we're going to visit who your customers are and the value that you offer to them before we actually move into talking about sales contact planning. All right. So who your customers are is you not just kind of meditating or thinking about it, but you actually going through the design thinking process and writing these things down, right? That between their age, their gender, are they married? What type of social environment are they in? Are they educated? What time and way, what is important to them? How do they spend their free time? And how do they think, right? And so, all right. And then to even put more meat on who your customers are, you can group them in these 3 different categories. There are more, but these 3 are quite always used. And so there is the geographic part, the demographics, being able to group them under psychographic, like what are their lifestyles? What are they concerned about? What are their behaviors? Okay. And so that behavior including you thinking through their purchase. How do they actually purchase and get something from you? Or with every problem that you're solving, someone is already doing it, but you want to do it better. And so with the existing or the alternative solution that they're using right now, how do they get it, right? And how can you make it better? And so these are the market segmentation that will help you group your customers, right? Because you're going to know that you're going to realize that you have multiple customer segments, all right? And so that leads me into talking about customer segmentation. Before I move on, Tiffany, is this being recorded? So that leads me into group customer segmentation. So being able to group your customers, because you will realize quickly that you have more than one customer, and there got to be a group of customer that you can target early on, right? You can target at a one customer group that you can target early on. And I have a perfect example here. This is a simple example, but it gets the point across. So when, for example, let's take a look at a professional art supply business, right? And who their customers are. A professional art supply business owner will realize that, oh, I have artists, right, as customers. I have tourists as customers. I have people that are retired, and as well as teachers and as well as students, okay? So with each grouping, I have to come to a place where I can group and separate my customers early on, especially because you want to start selling and you want to start selling with target. And so, for example, we have this one highlighted here where they realize that teachers are actually our go-to customers, or our early adopters, or our primary customer, right? So under teachers, how do they look like? What are their wants, right? What is age a factor? So that goes back to us looking at right here, the market segmentation is the once you group them, you can then start to identify and pick which components under this right here fits really well under each customer segment. And I'm sure, I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, allow me to say it again, all right? So the reason why we're talking about this is because once we move on into talking about sales contact planning, you will realize that there got to be an early adopter, right? And we like to think of them as the folks with the hair on fire problem, right? Which group has a hair on fire problem? So this person probably did interviews, did you know, a long period of thinking and realized, oh, teachers are actually the group with the hair on fire problem, right? So with teachers, are they the ones that really have that pain, right? Really need that solution like yesterday, the solution that you have, whether it's the product, service, or even the hardware, right? Are teachers with the hair on fire problem that they're thinking about, this needs to be solved right now, okay? And how do I figure out all the components or segmentation that are needed to really describe who this teacher group is or are? All right, so first thing to think about is the customer, and then you move on to the problems and the pains that they are having. And so I have some questions here that will help you go through the thinking process, that you start off with questions when it comes to thinking about what problems are they really having, right? Because we want your solution to address the problem, right? And that's how you remain in the market and in competition, is that there's always going to be that problem, right? What we do is we give better and better and better solutions. And so you can always remain competitive, always remain innovative if you really understand the problem that you're solving, all right? Because the problem that you're solving is always going to be there. We're just coming up with better and better solutions. So to figure out and be the master of the problem that you're solving more than anyone that you bring in your company. These are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself. What are the bad outcomes that they're having concerning what you're trying to deliver to them, right? What are some of the challenges and the difficulties that they're having? Are there obstacles that they're facing? And what exactly are they? What causes them to have the bad feelings, right? Bad feelings are very important. And people buy because they want to feel better. They want more convenience and all. But there are feelings and emotions attached to our purchases, you know? And so what are that bad feelings that lead them to buying from you? You got to be the master of that feeling that gets them to keep coming to your website or going to, your partner's website to purchase what it is that you're going to sell to them. Or if you're a software developer, what gets them to keep using your app, right? What is that feeling that they want to take out? Or what is the job that they want to do, but they want you to do for them? Okay. So for example, I guess real quick, what is the problem that Uber is solving? You can put in the chat or you can unmute. What is the problem that Uber is solving? Anyone can answer. What is the problem that Uber is solving? It's quite the same and it will quite be consistent. Waiting for a rain taxi in the rain, waiting for a taxi in the rain. Very specific. Let's go a little deeper. Transportation. Well, transportation, but they are in the transportation industry. Affordable, safe ride. All right. Okay. So let's go a little deeper. Uber really wants it to be convenient, right? Convenient for you to not have to wait in the rain, right? That is just one problem, but that is about convenience, okay? And when it comes to the transportation industry, how do I get access, right? Quickly. Again, convenience, as Mercy mentioned about transportation. And one is about affordability. That is also convenient. So you think about all the different convenient ways that Uber is making my life easy, whether I am a student, right? One customer segment, because college students specifically use Uber a lot, right? Or whether, and I'm an employee and I live very close, right? The closer you are going, the more people use Uber, right? People use it really for short distances for the most part. And so it's all about convenience. That bad feeling that I don't want to wait in the rain as a student to get to the grocery store, right? And so you got to think about all those scenarios and become that master of that problem that you are solving for your company or your business. All right. And so also, what are the worries, right? That your early adopters. And so for right now, you can put in the chat real quick. If you know your early adopter, just put it in the chat because, oh, Akosia, I see that I have 4 different customer segmentations, right? And I want to tackle this group first. You'd be very surprised how people just mix all their customers together, right? And try to communicate to all their customers the same way. And so we want you to start making sales, start increasing your traction, right? And there got to be a group that you are targeting and believe has the hair on fire problem. So you see that I haven't even talked about your product or your service yet. What really matters is starting with the problem that you're solving for your customers. And then out of that place, you can make your solution better, right? Or you can redesign your solution if needed. So when it comes to product or service, it is quite simple. This is a simple list of what you offer, right? Your early adopters. And there are different types of products or services. And so, again, thinking through it, am I more physical or or is my product is it more physical or tangible is what I'm trying to say, right? So those are the folks that need, for example, things to be manufactured, goods to be manufactured. And then is it intangible, right? Am I more of in that intangible place where my product is maybe, for example, copyrights or services such as am I more focused on after sales, assistance, right? As my service, like what am I going to be the master of in my service that will make me different? digital? Is it more like, for example, maybe music downloads? Is it more online recommendation? So you got to figure out which lane that you're in. And then is it more financial? So am I products more of like maybe investment funds or insurance or in such services that people purchase when it comes to financing? All right. So there is that for the product or the product and services type. Now, just to move on, once you have your product or services, what you want to do is group them. It's essential to acknowledge that not all product or services have the same relevance to customers, right? Some products and services are essential to your value proposition. Some are merely nice to have. Okay. So the concept, I know a lot of you already have your product or service, right? But the concept really is to talk to your customers, right? And identify the problem or the pains that you're solving. And some of you have been through ICAP. So you already kind of know about this mindset, right? So talking to your customers, thinking and understanding the problem that you're solving, and then coming up with solutions to solve the problem. Because you may already have a solution in mind, but people really may not want it, right? And you can only know that people want it if you talk to the people and come up with different solutions, right? And group them. Is it more, which one is essential and which one is nice to have? You don't want to be a nice to have, right? You want your solution to be identified as essential. All right. That this I needed the day before yesterday, and it is a hair on fire. All right. So now we're going to move into sales contacting, but please make sure that you do get these three big components, which is the product and services that you are offering, the customers, and the problems that you are solving in order to create a better solution, a better product, or better service. All right. Are there any questions? All right. If there are, you can put it in the chat. Before moving forward, all right, it is important for us to know where we are right now, because we're about to transition from the things that Bill was able to strategically get into place and get into our minds, right? So you should know and be working with your consultant under your target markets, right? What is the market capture? You should be able to be talking about my pricing, what this pricing looks like, and what is the projected revenue. And last week, Jim really mentioned some of these things of where your focus should be on right now. We keep saying it because we want to make sure that you're getting, those milestones that were expected for you to have by the end of the 12 weeks. All right. So right now, revenue projection, pricing, capture, market targets, it's a good, outlook for you and your consultant. All right. So now we can talk about sales channels. All right. So let's start with questions that you should be thinking about. You always want to be asking questions, right? Especially for startup. How do we bring our product or services to the market? That's what sales contacting is about. How do we bring our product or services to the market? How do we raise awareness about our company's product and services? All right. How do we raise awareness about that? How do we help customers understand our organization's value proposition? All right. So the value that we are offering, the benefit that we're offering, how do we get our customers to understand that more? That will lead to sales. And then how do we allow our customers to purchase specific products and services? All right. So what's the process that they're going to go through to actually purchase something? And the more you think of this as an experimentation process, the more you can get traction. So I will talk a little bit about that in a bit. But again, we go back to what type of service that you're in, right? And after you have identified yourself as, oh, I'm in more financial or intangible or, the four things that I mentioned. Now you got to think when it comes to sales contacting, right? And Bill has talked a bit about this. Am I more B2C, or is like business to customer, right? Or am I more B2B? And so business to customer, whether you are hardware, software, or you actually have a service, right? Or am I more B2B, business to business, or I like to think B2G, which is more a highly regulated environment, right? That it's difficult to get in, or they have a really standstill deep process, a highly regulated environment. Or am I more trying to get to B2B, but I want to use B2C, which is reaching out to my customers to gain validation, to gain traction, then reach out to businesses or key partners for them to sell. And so I have an example for each of this, some of the process that you should go through to gain traction. Because again, it's not just about getting in front of an investor, right? It's about how ready, how validated you are as a person, right? As a founder, because most investors are investing in you as a person. But on the product and service side, it's about how much traction that you actually have. And so, I'm going to go through all the different components and some examples or sequence that you should be going in before you get to that sales, right? Side of things. Before I give examples, Jim, do you have anything to add? I can't hear.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay.
So, the experimentation that Akosha is about to talk to, I want to back up just a little bit and say that another definition of B2B versus B2C versus B2B2C, you can think of it in terms of wholesale versus retail. If you're business to business, most often you're a wholesaler. You're trying to sell it to somebody else so they can either resell it or use it within their business to make a profit. If you're business to consumer or business to customer direct, you're probably at the retail level. The reason I bring it up is that some of the sales contact planning that we're going to all have to do in the online world is a different animal. How are you going to channelize yourself to be both retail and wholesale? Because online, quite often, you're going to be targeting a group of businesses that want your service or want to carry your website or want to link to you, and you're going to charge them some sort of fee that's below retail. Does that make sense, Akosha? Was that additive help? Okay, good.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Awesome. So let's take a look at some example of sequence that if you choose B2B, that you would want to go through in order to gain more traction, right? All right. So the first example I have here is, for example, a B2B hardware, right? I don't think we have many hardware here, but I have example for every every one of them, so that once you get the slides, you can look at it yourself and go through it. So you will always see that this all probably starts with some type of interview, right? Um, or interview, or maybe like a day in the life of someone that is already doing it. So the interview is to help you get understanding of the customer's problem, and then you move into maybe a paper prototype, then 3D printing, a data sheet, right, which will capture all the different measurements and the important aspects of the hardware, right? The data sheet will give different reasons for using different features on the hardware. And then you move into the actual MVP. All right. Then you want to get maybe a letter of intent from a manufacturer. And then, you can do maybe crowdfunding. But we always like to emphasize, it's not crowdfunding necessarily for equity. You don't want to push for that if you don't have to. All right. Another, I think we have software in here. So you want to do the customer interview. Some of an ICAP, the program ICAP does really good experimentation through customer interview. Then you want to gain more insight, right? With maybe a discussion forum, right? Then you want to then move on to having a clickable prototype. So we like to tell our software folks that don't put a code in the back end yet, meaning all the back end coding doesn't need to be done yet. You can have the design, right? And even get that design in front of your customers, and then before you move on to pre-selling, and then focusing on the feature that really matters to your customers, right? You all the software or apps that we have here, we tend to see that, there are a lot of features, but we like to say that if Facebook gave us everything that they have right now, the first day you got on Facebook, you would not be using Facebook right now, because it will be overwhelming, and the user experience, right, won't be really fun and something that will stick, because you got to take that customer through the journey, right? So figuring out which feature needs to be released, right, that solves the problem, right, is very, very important to consider for your MVP, and not designing every feature that you have in mind for our software folks. All right. So another B2, I'm going to move on to maybe B2C, which is more like a service. If you are more service based, I know we have some in here. So you want to get in front of experts, right, that are in that industry or that particular service, to really gain insight on the cost of how much it is for them to be, executing a certain process, right, or a certain service. And what you want to do is to see if that cost, or the cost of providing that service or existing service, matches up with what customers are saying. So you then figure out customer data to see if they match, and then you come up with a better service, and you can then do designs of like a brochure, or even your website then, to display how yours is better, right, than the existing solution, because there's always an existing solution. We always get this one, No one has seen this yet. No one has seen, or no one is doing this. Yeah, no one is doing this, right? We get that all the time. But the truth of the matter is there is nothing new under the sun, right? And so because there's nothing new under the sun, someone is doing what you're doing, right? They are using different alternatives to get through it, but you're just coming up with something better. Okay. And so having that mindset will always let you know that I don't have to start from scratch, right? I can see what the existing customers are saying and make it better before I display my website or my brochure, right? Now you can move into pre-selling, meaning before scaling, right? As a service, you can get it into the hands full of people before um, you can scale on that service. All right. So this is a really good example for folks that have a service-based business. All right. And again, once you get the presentation, you'll be able to see the other sequences. But there are some that I want to highlight. All right. So there's also the B2B to C, which is my end goal really is B2B, but I want to use B2C, all right, to get it in front of people. Okay. To get it in front of the actual end users to sell it to the customer, and then use that as an argument or a strong validation to a huge key partner such as a wholesaler or a retailer that's huge, right? And so a good example of that, and I think in where we are right now, there are more people using this approach, even if they are doing B2B. Is that how do I get those, customer interview, maybe do an online ad so you can gain email addresses or people that are buying in that, hey, we're interested when this launches, right? When this launches, we want to hear more, we want to buy. And then moving into having an explainer video about what it is that you're doing before you sell, right? Before you do your pre-sale. So I hope that makes sense. And so by the time you have a pop-up store, right, because that is selling to your customers, you have several validations here. You can show an investor that, hey, we have thousands of email subscribers that are interested in what it is that we're doing. And I'll give an example of one of our previous folks, Championship. They have an app that is to help people bet, sports betting, make where you can bet one-on-one anywhere, no matter what you are. I think is as low as $10. And so Championship is an interesting one that, they got early money, but they still realize that, that's not enough. And so what their founder was doing was, we need to get people back up even before the prototype is ready, right? We need to get people backed up that are interested in what we are doing, right? Before even building the product. So, right, the last time I talked, that months ago, I talked to him and he says they've been reaching out to, people on LinkedIn, and they have this simple landing page, right? That they reach out to like 50 people a day um, to check out and to subscribe to their landing page, which is subscribing and buying into what they're doing. And so he said they have over like 30, over 3,000, and that was months ago 3,000 email subscribers that are interested in your app, right? And so that becomes a form of validation and a good form to show investors that, hey, we have people lined up already, right? And so once you have those people lined up, then you can do your pre-sale, right? Because they know about it. You have this explainer video, right? They know about what you're doing. And so once you're ready to launch or you're ready to pre-sell, they are ready to buy, right? And so that is something that can be done. It just takes, commitment to be, doing that groundwork, right? Reaching out to people virtually to buy into what you're doing even before. And so people are using this approach, and I'm spending time on it because people are using it a lot before they go to the big wholesalers and retailers, right? You want to show that this is working because a lot of startups fail, but the more validation you have, the better off you are. All right. And so that simple landing page then leads you into maybe having a data sheet, moving on to um, talking to suppliers or different partners until you launch maybe in a pop-up store, right? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so in a highly regulated environment, and some of you will find yourself in, such as, oh, I need to partner with, you know, like a hospital, right? Or like an institution, like a university. Those environments tend to be highly regulated. So you can see these are some of the sequence that you can go through, right? To make sure that um, you your story, the problem that you're solving, your operations, even on an early stage, right? It's concrete, right? And it can stand test, and it can stand, even people whether spitting at it or throwing money at it. There gotta be substance. That's the word. Substance, right? There gotta be substance beyond the idea, right? Beyond the prototype. So these are some things that you can do in a highly regulated environment to provide that substance and to give people confidence to buy in to what you're doing. All right. Okay. So any insights or questions before I move on to talk about now what does sale a channel partner or looks like, right? So you see that there's a lot of work. I hope this makes you see that there's a lot of work that you can be doing, right? There's a lot of work you and I can be doing beyond waiting around for an investor, right? And we are going to, introduce you guys to investors, and we are all about it. But again, there's more, work that needs to be done beyond the pitch, the design, the business development, right? And these are the things that you can actually be doing for sure, before reaching out to something like a channel partner. All right. So now let's talk about channel partners. And some of you are familiar with the business model canvas. And so on the side, on the left side, where it says key partners, that's probably where you will find what we're talking about here. And so what you do for a channel partner, for example, my client, Crystal, in this cohort, her product, she's going to need a channel partners, right? And so she, with someone like her, she wants to think about finding a company that needs her, right? That needs her solution. and what can she do for them, right? A lot of times we're thinking about getting our stuff in the stores or in the retailers, but on the other end is something that they need. And so we got to figure out, and that's what make a great partnership, or is what is it? How do you need me, right? And how do we not kind of run into each other, but you got something to offer that I need, and I got something to offer that you need, and is very clear. All right. So you want to get to understanding what my channel partner needs and what you can do for them and what they can do for you. So that becomes a mutual benefit, right? If you are reaching out to channel partners. And one of Bill's presentations, he talks about making a list, right? After all is said and done, you got to have that list. And Jim has an Excel that he will normally give to nonprofits that I thought was very outstanding. It's very simple, but it gets the point done for you to know that you need a long list, right, of partners, people that are going to be willing to sponsor, people that are going to be willing to manufacture. That list is a simple thing to say, but it really helps with the mind. It really helps with you not being tied down to one particular partner, right? Like if they say no, it's the end of the world, right? That long list of the different partners, different sponsors, if you need sponsors, is very, very important for you to see that. All right. It's for some of the folks that are in service, or Jim is probably going to talk to you about nonprofit and how to really, they say that there's a lot of profit in nonprofit, and how to get, those money coming in, whether you have to change your business model to a nonprofit, right? That list, okay? The list of people. And if you're a software person, and you can even do this for customers, right? If for users, like who are the close people that I can get to, and get a never ending ongoing list, so that you're not feeling limited in your mind, right? And so, and then what are the mutual benefits that exist and very clearly defined as a result of this partnership? All right. Anything here, Jim?
Sorry, am I good? Yeah. Let's define what a channel partner is. Because I'm gonna imagine that a lot of people don't really know. So go back to the basics. A channel partner is a business or a person or an organization, an entity that already has access to your target market. Don't waste your time going after Walmart if you're not going to sell consumer goods at a cut rate price that is a very large producer kind of thing. So a channel partner, if you're in the software service business, for instance, could be a larger player that already has access to the market you're trying to put your software into. So we got Sheeta Besson here, who's an artisan jeweler. Her best channel partner is a partner that already has access to the artisan jewelry consumer in a bigger way than she does. So just to review, a channel partner has access to your target market. They want you for dollar reasons. You're going to make them more money while they make you more money. And here's another thing about channel partners. They, generally speaking, to be effective partners, are bigger than you. So I'm sorry, Akosha, that was just a way to go back and kind of put this in context.
No, not a problem. Yeah, I think that's like really well defined, that a channel partner has access to customers and resources that you need, more than you have, right? And it's going to help you really scale and get to your customers or more customers. Okay. All right. So that I think does really well talking about that and coming up with that list for different channel partners that you can reach out to when it comes to sales contacting. All right. So that really gets to the end of the presentation for sales contacting. But here is some things for you to think about, when it comes to your customers, that there's a difference between a consumer and a customer, right? So, for example, the software developers will have an end user, right? Meaning the person that actually um, uses it, but that doesn't mean it's the person that pays, right? And so it's very important to know the difference in all the folks that are involved in your purchasing process, especially before talking to the channel partners. All right. And so the end user is this the person that buys? Maybe, maybe not, but they are the consumer, right? They're going to use it. Or the influencer, who is the customer or the consumer listening to, right? And when I went through the ICAP program, they gave a good example about a Taylor Swift concert. The end user really will be teenagers, right? But and who are the folks that influences them will be their peers. Different Instagram profiles that they are following, right? And so differentiating those folks as well as who are the folks that will recommend to them to oh, this concert is coming up, right? Taylor Swift concert is coming up. How do we get to it? And then the decision maker, which is where I want to really differentiate, is the person that ultimately makes the buying decision, right? It's very important for you to know, especially when you're entering into a highly regulated environment and you need to partner with a hospital, right? Who is the person buying is different from the person that's going to probably use the product, right? So you need to figure out in that relationship, right? Who is that decision maker for me to get this particular partner, all right? And also we always also like to point out the economic buyer, right? Sometimes the person that actually writes the check in a highly regulated environment is different from the person that is actually going to make the decision to buy. Okay, so is that person more of an economic buyer, right? So that's important to consider, and who is looking to sabotage the deal. There's always someone out there in your purchasing process that could influence your customer to not buying. All right. And so it's good to think about that too when you're thinking about your journey with your channel partners and your journey with your customers and being a master of your customers. All right.
Coach,
Then we
Coach,
go
excuse me.
ahead.
I want to expand on the who writes the check thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to go after government business, which I just went over the cohort list here, there's only about 2 of you that really applies to. But the person who writes the entity that writes the check is definitely not the purchaser. You know, in the federal acquisition process, you've got to jump through a lot of hoops and all that kind of stuff. But the person who decides on you is not the person that writes a check. So as opposed to typical sales contact planning that we would do to go sell a consumer good to a wholesaler and find out who we're talking to, In the government business, you're going to look at RFPs, but before you even look at an RFP, you're going to look at the budget that that organization has to know that this RFP is funded, so that they actually have the money. I would say to you, the same holds true when you're going to wholesalers. You need to know what their propensity to spend is, their validity of the check that they have the capability of writing to you. It kind of gives your sales force an idea of what the end game is going to look like. How much of what you've got are you selling to this end user? Okay, sorry, Makosha.
No, thank you. Thanks for adding that to it. Awesome. And so now the contact plan, right? The whole point of talking about sales contacting is to have a contact plan. And so within your plan or your approach to contacting a channel partner, right? Knowing your target customers when it's all said and done, who are the people buying, being a master of them, right? Being a master of their habits and the things that we talked about, right? And then prioritize the customers based on the probability of closing, or in other words, prioritizing the partner, that list that I spoke about based on who is going to most likely close faster, right? You want to have that in mind. All right. And then determine the most effective method of contact, right? That's important too. So the partners, then the decision maker, if that's the important, you know, person that you need to reach, what's the effective way that you need to reach them, right? What way works for them? And we like to say that, you know, always starting with the maybe someone low level, such as like an operations manager, you know, those folks that are already in there that may not be a decision maker, but they understand the person to make a decision, to get insight from them is good before approaching that decision maker, right? That you want to partner with. So figuring out what's the best way to contact them by taking advantage of the people they work with. It's a good approach as well. All right. And then, of course, these are the things that we're helping you with that you're going to have ready before reaching out to a channel partner. That includes your proposal. And we have something called the one pager, and there's a template as well for you to have a quick one pager that they can look through, right? Real quick, not overwhelming, to really understand what you're doing, what you're asking them for, right? And how they can benefit. And so Jim will talk about the one pager later on, but you have that as well. So that's something that you want to have as part of your contact plan. Then, of course, your presentations, right? And if you have a product, even better, and a way to demonstrate that product, right? That solution to them. That is always an app when you have a way of demonstrating the prototype or product. And then a way to talk about what's next, right? How do we pilot or project this concept? And that's a way to bring them in, to share the vision with them, to project that, hey, this is what we want to do with you, right? To as a pilot or as a next step. All right. And then I have a sample of the one pager here, or you can call it data sheet, but we call it one pager, where you have a quick information, right? I believe these are nonprofits, right, Jim? So a quick display of something that is to come. Okay, yeah. Both are nonprofit. Okay. So a quick demonstration of something that you're about to do, something that is to come, whether it's the project, the last thing that we talked about here, the projection of how you want them to come in and partner with you, right? This really helps for them to have a visual, to see a one pager. That's not just in writing, right? So it gives them something and the next thing that you're asking them to do. Because there's a way you can talk to people and get their buy-in, but they still don't see how they fit. So this one pager really helps when you're looking for a partner for them to see what's next with you.